Wonder if you can talk a little bit kind of how you see yourself as a mentor, what you think is important about mentoring and teaching for yourself, being not only a feminist psychologist, but just a woman in psychology.
Well, I think that's the most important part of my job. It's also the least defined.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know what I have to teach. I know what administrative work I have to do. I know what grant applications are. I know how to write up an article. I know how to analyze data. But nobody gives you a guideline for mentoring students. So you sort of do what feels comfortable. I'm very excited about working with my students. That's always been my favorite part of the work. Just watching them develop their interests and just sort of, yes, I'm going to paraphrase Obama, it's become a cliche, but it's always been of course you can. Oh, you're interested in that? You want to study that? Well, why not? Let's find a way that you can follow your interests in this field that you've chosen. So how can we put together what you're passionate about with the conceptual, methodological, contextual stuff that you're going to get from psychology?
Mm-hmm.
How can you use psychology to pursue your own interests? And that is the way I've taken, because my belief is that if they aren't really, really interested in the subject, I don't just mean that it's the hottest thing in the literature, that they won't, it'll never be a career for them, it'll be a dissertation, but then that'll be it. And they'll be darn sick of it by the time they finish. So I don't want them to get sick of the topic before they finish their dissertation, or at least of the field, the topic, maybe, but they should.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. So that means they have to be following stuff that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to work with them. Okay, this is our data set. This is what's available. Especially recently, we're working with a huge longitudinal data set. I haven't talked to you at all about that. But we've turned that into a gender research factory. It was never intended as such, but because when the project was set up before I came, it started with equal numbers of boys and girls in the sample, which was really radical for studying aggression. So because of that, we can do all kinds of stuff that we couldn't do in any other data set, on longitudinal data set on aggression, which would have very few women in it. So the fact that we have all these women means that I could be very, very involved in whole setting up of this whole area of girlhood aggression and its outcome and so on. That's a whole other thing we haven't talked about. That was a little bit later. And I certainly didn't found that. That I just kind of got drawn into because it was happening. But we had this data set that could address it. So we let the students have access to that. We talked about what's possible within that. And I also was able to let, a lot of them were interested in gender issues, and I said, well, you can study gender issues within a longitudinal developmental psychopathology context. And they went, oh, really? I said, of course. So, these students you're talking about, that's where a lot of them came through. I mean, I'm thinking people who I just saw at the conference the last few days. Patty Peters was there, and she worked on assortative mating for aggressive girls for her dissertation. Mm-hmm. And that was her interest. I sure didn't suggest it to her. So there are a lot of I think most all of them, I would have to say, I hope that's what happened. Whether it was a gender-related issue or not, we usually manage to sneak gender in because we have these beautiful samples of men and women, and now that we're children, now men and women. And so, it's just a natural to see if the processes are the same, and then to pull in social factors and why they might be different. So it's a given kind of within the designs that we do. And personally, I think that's what the field is about. It's about people. I almost regard psychology as a tool, to accomplish scientific investigations of issues that are personally important. And I think that's why that gentleman at my interview didn't like my work. I can't believe you. You're using you're going about it ass backwards, was effectively what he was saying. You're using psychology as a tool to study what you want to study. You're supposed to study what psychology's interested in and forget all the rest of it. That's not how I view the field. So it's worked pretty well in terms of issues coming up, context from psychology, and I try to teach that to the students. And there are other things I try to teach them. You're working on something, other people can help you, but really the bottom line is if you want to get done, you just do it yourself. That sounds like my father's sayings from the army, but, you want something done, do it yourself, that kind of stuff. So there is a lot of that kind of motivational stuff that I try to teach them also. I try to teach them things like, Murphy's Law runs this laboratory. If you want to get anything, research is an unnatural enterprise in terms of the universe being run by entropy. You've really got to buck those natural tendencies towards chaos. Research trying to get control is just ridiculous and universal set. It's really an unnatural thing you're trying to do. You've got to work your ass off to do it. You've got, if you know that anything possibly can go wrong, you've got to be proactive in preventing, try to anticipate anything that can go wrong, prevent it. Another one I teach them is when you're trying to estimate the time frame on a project, regardless of what it is, you think about anything that could possibly go wrong, add that into your time frame, and then you multiply all that number with everything that could possibly go wrong in it by 4. And that's how long it's going to take you to finish this project. Plan that from the beginning. Not that I want it to take longer than it needs to, but if you anticipate that, then you'll only be pleasantly surprised by how long it takes. Otherwise, you're just going to give up. So those are things. And then, anything, if there's a problem, this is almost common sense. I think for every problem, there's a solution or several solutions. You just have to find the best one. It's not unique to psychology, any of this. But I do try. At one point we had those things up on the wall. The kids would laugh at it, but it's all true, and I think that they learn that, and I'm really proud of what they've accomplished. It's this academic grandparenting thing. In fact, I usually, when I give a talk, when I did the gender talk at the keynote talk last year at the gender conference, I love to start with the pictures of the students presenting their posters, and then I give their pictures of their children and that they've sent us. Often they love to send me gender stuff. So, I'll find somebody's 2-year-old boy cooking, and I'll put his picture up, and they just send me that.